Cultural revolution of the 1960s radically changed Western civilization forever. It was a time when many young people rejected their parents' values and their Christian roots. They turned to the East, to Hindu and Buddhist ideas, and merged them with their own Western values. It was the dawning of the New Age.
Cosmic humanism, more commonly known as the New Age movement, has grown at an astonishing rate in Europe and the United States. Even so, the New Age movement is not easy to define. New Agers do not agree in all their beliefs. They often change their beliefs to fit a rapidly changing society. Yet, there are key elements that bind New Agers together. For example, most New Agers would agree that their movement is both a religious and a social cause. They believe that the future will be an age of peace and enlightenment, and that by furthering their worldview through such avenues as education and politics, both personal and cultural transformation will usher in this new age. This worldview has attracted people from all walks of life. The New Age has captivated the rich and the poor, students and teachers, scientists and politicians. Even some churches have adopted New Age ideas. The New Age philosophy takes on many forms and is expressed in numerous ways. Yet all New Agers are united by the way they view reality and by their vision of a future of love, peace, and harmony. At the heart of the New Age movement pulses a humanistic view of the world, cosmic humanism. And like the humanistic worldviews of Marxism, Leninism, and secular humanism, the New Age worldview tells us to look within to find truth and meaning. But cosmic humanists move beyond the atheistic humanisms to declare that humanity is divine, that man is God.
The New Age movement is in constant transition. There is no centralized leadership, and they feel no obligation to any particular scriptures. New Agers often select ideas and practices from a variety of religious traditions. Participants believe whatever their hearts desire. Whatever they believe is true. Whatever they feel is true. As God, humans are their own ultimate authority. And while this attitude is appealing to many people, just how many is difficult to estimate. Since the New Age movement is not an organized religion, solid statistics are hard to acquire. Some sociologists have estimated that as many as 12 million Americans are active participants in the New Age, while another 30 million show regular interest. It has also been estimated that in America alone, there are 10,000 professional astrologers serving over 20 million clients. It is difficult to find a newspaper that does not carry daily astrology readings. The New Age movement is also a cultural force. From business seminars on stress release and human potential, to cartoons and mega-hit movies, to best-selling books and politicians, these beliefs are found throughout our culture. Many people have adopted elements of the New Age worldview and don't even know it. The movement is now too common, too influential, and has been sustained far too long to be viewed simply as a fad that will soon pass away.
To better understand the cosmic humanist worldview, it is important to look at its roots to see how it has slowly seeped into Western culture.
New Age beliefs are not new. While many analysts point to the early 1970s as the beginning of the New Age movement, its ideas have been around for hundreds, even thousands of years. The current movement is simply the latest manifestation of an ancient and persistent occult metaphysical tradition. This tradition threads through Gnosticism, Hinduism, Buddhism, and many forms of mysticism. It is found among many American-based religious groups such as spiritualism, theosophy, Christian Science, and Eckankar.
Most people think of it as something that came out of the hippie and other movements of the counterculture here in the US and in the West, starting in the 60s. That is actually when it came into prominence into the media, and people started to take notice of it and started to actually practice it in large numbers. But the roots go far deeper and earlier. If you start to look at the roots of this worldview, you will find that their philosophical roots are in India. Even if the organizational roots may not be in India, the philosophical roots are very definite in India, and particularly and specifically Hinduism and Buddhism.
Eastern spirituality was one of the most influential factors in setting the stage for the New Age movement. In the late 18th century, Hindu religious texts were translated into English and imported to the West. These texts helped incite the beginnings of such groups as the Transcendentalists and the Theosophists. These groups, in turn, helped propagate a westernized form of Hinduism. The Transcendentalists, such as Ralph Waldo Emerson, took these recently translated holy books of Hinduism and created a uniquely American form of mysticism.
They merged the mysticism and dogmas of the East with the popular American values of individualism and self-responsibility, looking to nature to teach spiritual truths. Transcendentalists believed that God was revealed in all religions, and that by studying nature and ourselves, without the need for any special revelation, such as the Bible, they could uncover the secrets of their inner selves, knowledge of the divine.
In 1875, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky founded the Theosophical Society and introduced the ideas of karma and reincarnation to the West.
The New Age worldview, borrowing from Hinduism and Buddhism, is that we are spirits trapped in our bodies to go through a lifetime of working out our salvation in, as it's understood in that worldview. Salvation there is the word mukti, which means deliverance or breaking out of this cycle of birth and rebirth, liberation from. And what is the law that keeps this cycle going on and on and on is karma, the law of action and reaction. It's a cause and effect on the moral plane, which suggests that for all your actions, good and bad, they result in your next life and your station in the next life and how many more lives you have to go through before you attain to mukti or deliverance out of the cycle of birth and rebirth, which is reincarnation.
In the 1960s, when America's borders were open to Asian immigrants, religious ideas such as transcendental meditation and Zen Buddhism were ushered in. They offered an exotic, even paradoxical philosophy, combined with a deep experientialism. Rock groups such as the Beatles became showpieces for transcendental meditation. In the 60s and 70s, several New Age organizations were formed, and New Age journals and books hit the newsstands. Shirley MacLaine's film version of Out on a Limb aired in the fall of 1987 and introduced the public to such ideas as channeling spirits of the dead, revelations from extraterrestrials, crystals, and out-of-body experiences. By the late 80s, most Americans had heard of the New Age movement, even if they didn't quite understand it.
The New Age movement of the past really was Hinduism Hollywoodized. We imported the beliefs from the East, we gave them Shirley MacLaine, lights, camera, action, and it became palatable to people in the West. And the average American was quite excited by this.
Certain schools of psychology blended easily with this Eastern spirituality. Some looked to the teachings of famed psychologists Abraham Maslow, Carl Rogers, and Rollo May, who affirmed the inherent goodness of human nature and focused attention on humanity's unlimited potential. They taught that self-actualization and self-realization were needed to meet one's personal needs and desires. This gave rise to the Human Potential Movement.
The New Age movement and the Human Potential Movement was an attempt to say, hey, no, we shouldn't resign ourselves to pessimism and despair. We are great. In fact, we are God. In fact, we can discover our full potential. We are the most evolved beings that we know about. And therefore, we have to save ourselves and we have to realize ourselves. But instead of going through the route of secular humanism or rationalism, let's go the route of cosmic humanism by becoming one with cosmos, which is consciousness. So the mystical route of discovering who we are and who we can become.
New Age ideology has also influenced the medical establishment through the holistic health movement. Many people have been drawn from experimenting with herbs and acupuncture to believing in a life force or energy. Some have then adopted meditation techniques, leading to altered states of consciousness and the channeling of spirits.
What we're seeing today is across the breadth of our cultural life, whether it's in the media or whether it's just going out to a Y, which offer yoga classes. You go to the University of Minnesota and their health services for stress offer just a variety of yoga sessions. And that is the official paid-for medical services recommendation, that for stress you take yoga. It has become mainstream. It is no longer a fringe phenomenon. So the saturation is significant, if not complete.
Today, New Age authors have captured the imagination of millions through their gripping autobiographies and enchanting fiction. New Age seminars regularly attract hundreds and thousands of participants. From Ouija boards to UFO abductions, from psychic powers to mystical physics, from mantras to Native American spirituality, millions of people around the world have been drawn to the neo-pagan and occult elements common to the New Age movement.
The New Age movement of the past was well defined. Today it's really not. It's been absorbed into our culture, and so I think it's best to speak in terms of cosmic humanism, which is a more embracive designation, and that it encompasses then both the New Age movement as well as ancient paganisms and neo-paganisms. So inclusive of cosmic humanism would be witchcraft and contemporary druidism and occultic practices and so on. So we see people becoming spiritual but not orthodox. They don't call themselves religious because that gives the sense of being an organized religion, and they prefer disorganized religion, in effect, where they get to pick and choose for themselves. And so there is a broad-based spirituality, but it's far from being biblical.
Cosmic humanists reject absolute scriptural authorities. They believe that the Bible is no more the Word of God than the Koran or the words of Confucius. David Spangler says, quote, "We can take all the scriptures and all the teachings and all the tablets and all the laws and all the marshmallows and have a jolly good bonfire and marshmallow roast, because that is all they are worth." According to New Agers, revelation is not primarily found in books of Scripture or other sources outside of ourselves. Even so, many authors are popular among New Age devotees: Shirley MacLaine, David Spangler, Marilyn Ferguson, Kevin Ryerson, Shakti Gawain, Marianne Williamson, Deepak Chopra, Joseph Campbell, Gary Zukav, and Neil Donald Walsh. Although there is no universal cosmic humanist creed, many New Age beliefs are common. In theology, they are pantheists. In philosophy, they hold to a form of monism. Like other humanistic worldviews, they also advocate ethical relativism and believe that humans evolved by Darwinian or punctuated evolution. Their psychology centers on a collective consciousness, and sociologically, they advocate a non-traditional view of the home, church, and state. The New Age view of law is self-law, and politically, they hope to achieve a New Age order. Their economics can be classified as universal enlightened production, and they understand history as an evolutionary growth toward God consciousness. The theology of cosmic humanism is pantheism, the idea that everything is God and God is everything. The word pantheism comes from two Greek words, pan, meaning all, and theos, meaning God. Everything is God.
The theology of cosmic humanism is what is termed pantheism. And pantheism is the belief that everything is God and God is everything. And this cashes out in their practice in terms of reverencing everything, all of life and non-life, whether things are human or non-human. Everything is divine.
The popular New Age spokesperson, Deepak Chopra, explains God turns out to be the only thing that is real, and the whole universe, despite its immensity and solidity, is a projection of God's nature. Because all is one, and this one is God, humans should seek God consciousness. That is, they must get in touch with the cosmic energy force that is divine. Shirley MacLaine writes, "You each need to become masters of your own souls, which is to say, the realization of yourselves as God.
New Age does not actually believe that we are potential gods, but that we are gods, that we are actually one with God. God is in us and we are God. It's just that we have not attained to that level of consciousness or self-awareness to recognize that we are God. And the whole purpose of the various disciplines that New Age will put out, whether it's yoga in its various forms or meditation, etc., are all supposed to lead to this higher state of consciousness, of self-realization, which comes out to be recognizing or realizing that you are, in fact, God.
New Agers do not believe that this cosmic energy they call God is a personal being distinct from creation. Rather, God is an impersonal force or power that produces and pervades everything.
Everything in this universe is in fact energy. An ultimate form of energy is consciousness, and that is God, and that is in you, and you need to experience your oneness with everything. That's really pantheism.
As Deepak Chopra asserts, God, it turns out, isn't a person, God is a process. I see no difference between myself and God. When I pray, I find that I'm praying to myself. God is not separate from us. We are God. This is why so few New Agers actually pray. Rather, they meditate. Prayer becomes unnecessary, writes Chopra. Finally, in the state of unity consciousness, there is no need for prayer. Your every thought comes from the soul. Therefore, you would only be praying to yourself.
Cosmic humanists reject the naturalistic and materialistic philosophies of Marxism and secular humanism as far too limited. After all, if everything is God, then everything is essentially divine. Thus, cosmic humanist philosophy focuses on the spiritual nature of all things.
The philosophy of cosmic humanism is what is called non-naturalism, and this stands in contrast to the naturalistic philosophy of secular humanism that says only the physical world exists. Non-naturalism says everything is in essence spiritual or divine, which shows that this philosophy rests perfectly on the theology of pantheism.
Pure consciousness is the true nature of the universe, and this is what we can call God. You know, it's always been, always will be, is unchangeable, and so forth. And so that fits in with naturalism. You just redefine what nature is. It's not material, it's spiritual.
Many New Agers even believe that the Earth is a living entity. This belief is sometimes called the Gaia hypothesis. Joseph Campbell, in his influential series The Power of Myth, describes it this way. If you will think of ourselves as coming out of the earth, rather than having been thrown in here from somewhere else, you will see that we are the earth. We are the consciousness of the earth. David Spangler says that the New Age is holistic in that it affirms the interconnectedness and intercommunion of all things, and the fact that the actions of any part of the wholeness affects every other part. It is therefore ecological, affirming Gaia, to treat all things not only as ourselves, but as honored and precious manifestations of God. Former Vice President of the United States, Al Gore, agrees with this perspective when he writes in his book, Earth in the Balance, "We are not used to seeing God in the world. It is my own belief that the image of God can be seen in every corner of creation. By experiencing nature in its fullest, our own and that of all creation, with our senses and with our spiritual imagination, we can glimpse bright shining as the sun an infinite image of God." New Agers often view rational inquiry as limited. Rather than spend time focusing on science and philosophy to understand the ultimate nature of reality, New Agers focus their intuition and their feelings. For example, Shirley MacLaine writes, "You must learn to trust your feelings more and refrain from approaching so many issues in life from strictly an intellectual perspective. Intellect as a marvel is limited. Feelings are limitless. Trust your heart." Best-selling New Age author Neil Donald Walsh agrees. Stop it. Get out of your mind. Get back to your senses. Your thoughts are just that, thoughts. But your feelings, now they are real. This focus on feelings entered the public consciousness through the blockbuster movie Star Wars.
Stretch out with your feelings. succeed, you can do it.
If absolutely everything is God, as New Age theology and philosophy declare, then everything is essentially divine. Naturally, then, they encourage us to look within, to trust our feelings, our intuitions. Experience God. Experience the universe. Experience ourselves as divine.
What higher standard could one have than God? And if I am God, then what higher standard do I have than me? Thus, ethical standards become relative to the individual. I need not look outside myself. I need only to look within.
Cosmic humanist approach to ethics is relativistic. Of course, this stems again from their pantheism. If you're God, then you get to decide for yourself what is right and wrong. And so many New Agers will not only say that they can create their own reality, they believe they can create their own morality. And in doing so, they get to decide what's right and wrong for themselves.
This relativism means that no one can judge if another's actions are good or evil. Morality is simply relative. This belief has led many New Agers to conclude that there is no real difference between good and evil. Writes Deepak Chopra, what is the nature of good and evil? God is the union of all opposites. Evil no longer exists. Shirley MacLaine claims that belief in good and evil leads to war. Until mankind realizes there is, in truth, no good and there is, in truth, no evil, there will be no peace.
The duality of good and evil is but an illusion. So the whole idea is to transcend this low level of illusion into this higher level of consciousness to recognize that there is no duality. And they would call it a higher ethic or whatever, but it dispenses with, in fact, the opposites of evil and good.
The best-selling New Age author, Neale Donald Walsch, agrees in Conversations with God. He writes, I have said over and over again that there is no right or wrong in the universe. A thing simply is. Hitler did nothing wrong. Hitler simply did what he did.
So ultimately, we're either accountable to impersonal laws within the universe, such as the law of karma and so forth, or we're accountable to ourselves. And ultimately, self becomes the creator because, for one thing, we are all that is, ultimately, our true identity. But also, the belief is that in our incarnations, in our own personal lives, whatever we experience was our own creation. You know, either through the law of cause and effect of karma, that you get back what you put out, or even in a more direct sense, a lot of New Agers today believe that in between incarnations, as we reincarnate, you actually map out what you're going to experience in order to learn lessons. And so you create your own reality in all of those ways. And then add to that the fact that your own positive mental attitude or negative mental attitude, since mind is the ultimate reality, whatever you believe is going to happen is what's going to happen. And so you create whatever happens to you.
New Agers reject God's law, as well as the guilt that comes from violating these laws. New Age guru Louise Hay says traditional religion is guilt-ridden and was created simply to control people. There may have been a time when humans needed such religion, but we have evolved beyond that now. New Agers also reject the idea that God will judge us for our sins. They deny the existence of sin and reject the idea of a real hell. Neale Donald Walsch writes, Hitler went to heaven for these reasons. There is no hell, so there is no place else for him to go. His actions were what you would call mistakes, the actions of an unevolved being. And mistakes are not punishable by condemnation, but dealt with by providing the chance for correction, for evolution. The mistakes Hitler made did no harm or damage to those whose deaths he caused. Those souls were released from their earthly bondage, like butterflies emerging from a cocoon.
The cosmic humanist ethical system calls for people to follow their own inner truth without judging another's actions, beliefs, or truth. You may judge yourself, but you must not judge others. All humanistic worldviews advance some form of evolution. But unlike the secular humanist and Marxist-Leninist worldviews, New Agers believe in a form of cosmic evolution. They believe that human beings will inevitably evolve into a general state of God consciousness, realizing their divinity. Only when this consciousness is achieved will there be peace and harmony on earth. The God force behind evolution provides the guarantee that the final state of unity, enlightenment, and oneness is inevitable.
Instead of focusing on biological evolution, cosmic humanists look to spiritual evolution as the process of achieving personal enlightenment and God consciousness. Pop psychologist M. Scott Peck writes, "God wants us to become himself, or herself, or itself. We are growing toward Godhood. God is the goal of evolution. It is God who is the source of the evolutionary force, and God who is the destination. This is what we mean when we say that He is the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end."
So far, evolution has been an unconscious process, but now that human beings have become self-conscious, you need to take charge of evolution and realize your divinity by going within your own consciousness.
Cosmic humanists believe that evolution takes place not only on an individual level, but also on a collective level. Marilyn Ferguson writes, "The proven plasticity of the human brain and human awareness offers the possibility that individual evolution may lead to collective evolution. When one person has unlocked a new capacity, its existence is suddenly evident to others, who may then develop the same capacity. Not every individual in the world will evolve at the same rate, but when enough people have achieved this higher consciousness, unenlightened individuals will naturally be drawn into the collective consciousness." New Age thinkers recognize that this view of evolution best fits the currently reigning evolutionary hypothesis known as punctuated equilibrium. This is the theory that evolution takes place primarily through periodic jumps in evolutionary growth, rather than through a simple gradualism. Thus, humanity may remain in an unenlightened state for a long period of time, but in a relatively short time span, we will all encounter an evolutionary quantum leap.
Cosmic humanists take evolutionary theory a step beyond the secular humanist Darwinism and the Marxist idea of materialistic evolution, sometimes called punctuated equilibrium. Here, the focus is on the evolution of consciousness. As humans gain a greater consciousness of their divinity, as they grow in self-consciousness, self-actualization, self-realization, they evolve mentally and spiritually. This kind of evolution begins on the individual level, but it quickly moves to a collective level. The goal is a collective consciousness.
Instead of further human physical evolution determined by geography, environment, and natural selection, cosmic humanists hope for psychological or spiritual evolution.
New Age ideas pervade Western culture. Such beliefs as the spiritual unity of all things, the laws of karma, the cycles of reincarnation, and the insights of astrology have become commonplace. Politicians, teachers, and scientists, even many religious leaders, otherwise associated with traditional religions, hold these beliefs. In Part 2, we will continue our study of the influential cosmic humanist worldview as we examine the disciplines of psychology, sociology, law, politics, economics, and history. The New Age movement is an important force in contemporary American culture. New Agers seek to live out their beliefs in the transformation of themselves and of society. They seek to transform every facet of their individual lives, and one key to that personal transformation resides in the realm of human psychology.
Achieving collective consciousness is the main goal for cosmic humanists. New Age psychology is based on one simple principle: commune with your own divine essence, the God within.
The New Age is so fixated on self-actualization, self-development, and that's how many of the New Age programs are put across. Whether it's yoga, meditation, whatever, it is all for the sake of finding yourself, realizing your higher self, and coming to your full potential as a self, as a person.
The popular New Age guru, Deepak Chopra, proclaims the only clear path to God is a path of constant self-awareness. Deepak even goes so far as to declare, "I believe that God has to be known by looking in the mirror." Shirley MacLaine proclaimed a similar message in her movie Out on a Limb.
I am God. I am God.
I am God.
I am God. I am God.
The New Age movement combines certain schools of psychology with Eastern spirituality. New Agers use the theories of Abraham Maslow, Carl Rogers, Carl Jung, and Rollo May to evaluate our view of humanity as having unlimited potential. In contrast to the Christian understanding of humans as sinful, Maslow believed that since our inner nature is good or neutral rather than bad, it is best to bring it out and encourage it rather than to suppress it. If it is permitted to guide our life, we grow healthy, fruitful, and happy. Maslow promoted a psychology of self-actualization. Rogers promoted a psychology of self-realization. Jung advocated collective consciousness. In the end, each person accomplishes the goal of realization by satisfying his or her own needs and desires. This view helped give rise to the human potential movement. This expressed itself in such common slogans as, "I'm okay, you're okay." The focus is upon the self, upon developing our own personal humanity. The human potential movement encourages people to change from older Western ways of thinking into a newer Eastern way of thinking. But New Age psychology focuses on more than just individual development. Their focus is on the collective. The New Age goal is to raise a collective consciousness so that humanity can further its psychological and spiritual evolution. In this way, the well-being of the entire world could be secure and assured. New Agers believe that our thinking creates reality. Mind over matter is a common slogan. Thus, our thinking ultimately determines our failure or success in life. This belief also affects how one understands health and illness in life. People suffering through painful sickness or disease are doing so because they have not yet achieved higher consciousness. We are not really victims of illness or disease, we just think we are. As Shirley MacLaine writes, we are not victims of the world we see, we are victims of the way we see the world. In truth, there are no victims. There is only self-perception and self-realization. To achieve a higher state of consciousness, cosmic humanists use meditation, sometimes aided by crystals or mantras, or even by drugs. In order to commune with the universe and your divine nature, you need to meditate and look within. Many New Agers also believe in an ability to channel spirits. They believe that spirits will sometimes speak through a gifted person in an altered state of consciousness. Channeling has been made popular through a variety of books, as well as through mainstream movies such as Ghost. Many New Agers believe the spirits channeled are those of ascended masters, people who have traveled through the earth plane and achieved a high level of consciousness. They will help us find our way in life, so we too can gain an enlightened consciousness. Not every member of the New Age movement sees much significance in channeling, but all New Agers embrace meditation as an important tool for attaining higher consciousness. This enlightened state of mind can be further enhanced through astrology, yoga, firewalking, Ouija boards, crystals, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, drugs, sex, guided visualization, and other esoteric practices.
Growing in our own consciousness of our own divinity provides the foundation for developing a collective consciousness where all humanity realizes its unity, divinity, and power.
Cosmic humanist sociology concentrates on undoing our current social boundaries. These boundaries are viewed as inhibiting our ability to achieve a higher consciousness. Cosmic humanists believe that all social institutions must encourage individuals to seek the inner truth of their own perfection. Otherwise, these institutions should be transformed. Thus, New Agers advocate a non-traditional view of home, church, and state.
Cosmic humanist sociology, of course, is not based on traditional morality when it comes to sexual ethics and family values and things like this. And yet, cosmic humanists do try to help us recognize, from their perspective, a certain unity that we have because we're all divine. And they believe that if we can recognize our unity, then we can better create communities.
Many cosmic humanists point to marriage and the family as examples of outdated, unenlightened institutions. They believe that in their traditional Judeo-Christian forms, marriage and the family inhibit spiritual evolution. In his best-selling book, The Seat of the Soul, Gary Zukav writes, Spiritual partners cannot say that they will be together forever. All of the vows that a human can take cannot prevent the spiritual path from exploding through and breaking these vows if the spirit must move on. Shakti Gawain, another popular New Age teacher, believes we need to rework our attitudes regarding divorce to create a society more conducive to mankind's evolution to godhood. People who divorce almost inevitably feel that they have failed because they assume all marriages should last forever. In most such cases, however, the marriage has actually been a total success. It's helped each person grow to the point where they no longer need its old form.
Given the New Age focus on the self, self-realization, self-actualization, self-awareness, self-evolution, the other person in a relationship is incidental, perhaps a feature of one's karmic evolution. The relationship at best is impermanent. If you decide to move on, you just move on.
Some New Agers believe that there's a person called your soulmate or your spiritual partner that can help you in your own spiritual growth, and you can help that person. And so they look to meet that person. They may or may not marry that person, and even if they do marry that person, they may not remain married. It's a mutually advantageous relationship for as long as it lasts.
Traditional views of sexuality are also viewed as preventing people from traveling their own path of freedom toward enlightenment. New Agers believe that traditional sexual roles have been used to repress people and undermine full human freedom. Kevin Ryerson, a New Age channeler highlighted in Shirley MacLaine's book Out on a Limb, believes that it is only when each person becomes androgynous and non-judgmental of other person's sexuality and its expression, as long as it is consented to by both parties, that all the diversifications of human sexuality merge and find a common path that is both liberating and unifying. Shakti Gawain further individualizes sexual preferences when she writes, each person's sexual energy is individual. When freed of all our rules, limitations, and rebellions, we'll be able to discover our own natural flow. Some people will want to express themselves sexually more than others will. Some people will want one lover, some no lover, some many lovers.
The norm within the New Age would be that sex outside of marriage is acceptable, homosexuality is acceptable. There are no moral laws governing sexual behavior such as we have in the Bible. The only real law that they accept, which is true of the culture at large, is that there should be consent on the part of anyone involved in a sexual activity, and then anything goes pretty much.
Cosmic humanists tend to view organized religions as restrictive. They prefer to choose from different traditions and make their own path. Thus, they advocate religious pluralism, the belief that all religions ultimately lead to the same end, that all religions ultimately worship the same God. Marianne Williamson says, no religion has a monopoly on the truth. Christ refers to the common thread of divine love that is the core and essence of every human mind. The only religious perspectives not tolerated by New Agers are those that claim to have universal truths, holding that other beliefs are false. Thus, Christianity is rejected as ignorant and unenlightened.
Cosmic humanist sociology is tied closely to cosmic humanist psychology, which in turn is based on its pantheistic theology. Since each individual is ultimately divine, individuals have all the power necessary to change society. Individual change comes first. Societal change will follow. Social institutions that do not encourage this transformation to higher consciousness must be transformed themselves.
According to the cosmic humanist worldview, ultimate authority resides within each individual. Since every person is God, we can only decide the lawfulness of an action by being conscious of the divine nature.
The cosmic humanist view of law might be termed self-law, and this flows from their pantheistic perspective, that we are all God, and therefore we get to create our own morality.
New Agers reject external rules, instead focusing on their inner truth in order to remain true to their higher consciousness. Writes Shirley MacLaine, your dogmatic religions, for example, are the most limiting for mankind because they demand unquestioned reverence for authority, an exterior authority. You are God. You know you are divine, but you must continually remember your divinity, and, more important, act accordingly. New Agers reject God's laws as repressive, external, and foreign. Rather than obeying God's laws as revealed in the Bible, we are to obey ourselves. Kevin Ryerson said, "We are not under the law of God. We are as the law of God. We are God. We have to totally accept ourselves, to accept the laws of self which are divine. Then we become God, and God and the self are one." Neil Donald Walsh agrees when he writes, "I will begin with a statement that will startle you, and perhaps offend the sensitivities of many people. There are no such things as the 10 Commandments. Who would I command? Myself?"
If you start with pantheism and say that everyone is God, and then you move to a psychology of, say, higher consciousness where we need to realize our divinity, then it's only a small logical step to affirm that as divine, we get to determine moral and legal standards for ourselves, individually. Thus, cosmic humanist law is really a law of the self, a law of the individual. And since they believe that human beings are basically good because they are basically God, then our choices regarding what is right and wrong simply can't be wrong.
Cosmic humanists desire to be under no external authorities. They believe they create their own reality and their own rules. They desire to be a law unto themselves. Put simply, Christians believe that humans need laws because humans are sinful and are capable of doing the wrong thing. In contrast, cosmic humanists hold that mankind and all of life is basically good. As Marianne Williamson writes, "Nothing you have ever done or will ever do can mar your perfection in the eyes of God. You're deserving in His eyes because of what you are. God is totally approving and accepting of you, exactly as you are. What's not to like? You were not created in sin, you were created in love. We're essentially good."
External laws just keep us from being free to realize our own divine essence. External laws and authorities are counter-evolutionary. They prevent people from being the most they can be. If anything hinders our spiritual growth, it must be abandoned.
Cosmic humanists regard modern political systems as divisive, fragmented, unjust, rigid, and obsolete. They call for the end of current political systems as well as the false beliefs that lead to them. Politically, most New Agers lean more to the left, though they cannot be simply labeled as liberals or conservatives. The cosmic humanist view of politics centers on their belief that all mankind is evolving toward a higher state of consciousness. In this state of enlightenment, all humans will realize their true unity, their divine oneness. This will be a state of collective consciousness. David Spangler writes, "The New Age planetary civilization arises less out of politics than out of what is called the holistic vision. This awareness that all life is interrelated and interdependent, that the formative elements of creation are not bits of matter but relationships, and that evolution is the emergence of ever more complex patterns and synthesis of relationships." Once New Agers reach a higher consciousness, a global civilization will arise, the New Age Order. To reach the New Age Order, nations must come to a new understanding of their relationship to each other. Marianne Williamson calls for this new understanding when she writes, "God is one, therefore you and I are one. God is one, therefore all nations are one." The belief in pantheism leads New Agers to call for a new political order that will unify the entire planet. This order will transcend individual, familial, tribal, and national boundaries. Such boundaries are viewed as stunting our evolutionary progress.
I do not believe that the New Age has any coherent thinking about politics, but such as it is, they would see that politics as currently constituted is just a stage of man, that as man evolves spiritually and morally, in their view, they won't need government. But there is an idea even there of some kind of one world government that would in some way spiritually direct or manage the whole planet.
Many New Agers hope the United Nations will ultimately unify humanity. In their book, Spiritual Politics, Changing the World from the Inside Out, Corrine McLaughlin and Gordon Davidson write, "The soul of the United Nations is the soul of a nascent one humanity. When the United Nations moves into its full and wise use of its power, the welfare of the world will be assured."
The cosmic humanist approach to politics seeks to engender a unity across national boundaries. And so anything that can break down those national boundaries is positive. And yet, they have to engender a perspective of unity between nations, between families, between individuals. And so sometimes that means that things like the United Nations need to come into play to enforce those laws that would encourage us to act as one.
The New Age order will be a place where every person follows their bliss, uninhibited by government restrictions or laws. But there is one aspect of a person's freedom that some New Agers will not tolerate: claims to orthodoxy and universal truth. Former UN Assistant Secretary General Robert Mueller has written, "Religions must actively cooperate to bring to unprecedented heights a better understanding of the mysteries of life and of our place in the universe. My religion, right or wrong, must be abandoned forever in the planetary age."
It's a golden opportunity to rethink politics and to come together across national boundaries and create a new world. But in order to do that, the main thing that we have to free ourselves from is fundamentalisms. You know, whether Islamic fundamentalism or evangelical Christianity or Jewish orthodoxy, these are often stigmatized as the real trouble source in our world.
New Age beliefs about the need for a New Age order shapes their view of economics. Most cosmic humanists don't discuss the specifics of a world economic system because they believe that spiritually enlightened people cannot be bound by the limitations of any present-day economic system. New Agers call for an economic system where people get more from cooperating than from competing. They appeal for a system beyond capitalism or socialism. As Mark Satin writes, as economic systems, capitalism and socialism each have their strong points, freedom and security respectively. But socialism's security tends to become regimentation, and capitalism's freedom tends to become dog-eat-dog.
There's differences of degrees towards socialism versus capitalism among New Agers, and you can't say the New Age is one way or the other, but many New Age thinkers are very comfortable with capitalism as long as it's more, quote, enlightened, you know, and people use their profits to, you know, try to further the environment or human rights or other things.
The New Age approach often focuses on attaining wealth through positive thinking, affirmations, and meditation. Our thinking determines our failure or success in life. It can also determine how well our desires are fulfilled. Writes Shirley MacLaine, if I have enough faith in something, particularly through concentration or meditation, then I am unconsciously giving off enough positive energy which could ultimately result in its attainment. Most New Agers view enlightenment as a path to prosperity. The cosmic humanist view of economics says that whatever the worker supplies, as long as he follows his bliss, will be in great demand. Shakti Gawain proclaims basically the whole issue of money is doing what you really want to do all the time. The universe will reward you for taking risks on its behalf. The more you're willing to trust yourself and take risks to follow your inner guidance, the more money you will have. The universe will pay you to be yourself and do what you really love. New Age leaders say that by doing what feels right, following your feelings, believing in yourself, this will lead the enlightened to riches. This belief is especially popular in America because some New Age leaders have reaped huge profits by doing what they like to do, selling books and headlining conferences.
I don't believe the New Age has any one particular preference or philosophy of what constitutes the best way of managing our economic affairs. But on observation, if you were to look, I would have to say that the New Age is a great export version of Hinduism and Buddhism, and it's been greatly marketed. It's marketed very well. Many people have been benefited from it, economically I mean, and particularly the gurus.
Economic theory means relatively little to most cosmic humanists. Unenlightened economic systems are for unenlightened societies. When most people have achieved higher consciousness, there will be no need for an economic system at all. In the New Age order, men and women will follow their bliss, and their bliss will cause them to provide whatever product or service will be best for the global civilization. This is universal enlightened production.
The cosmic humanist trusts the evolutionary nature of the God force to guide humanity toward perfection for the self and all of society. They see all history as an inevitable ascent toward collective consciousness. History is progressive because history is necessarily evolutionary. This view of history can be called evolutionary godhood.
The cosmic humanist view of history, stemming from Eastern religions such as Hinduism and Buddhism, tends to have a certain sense of being cyclical about it. And yet, since those Eastern perspectives have been combined with Western values, it also has an overlay of advancement or improvement or evolution. And so cosmic humanists tend to be quite optimistic with regards to the future. They believe that they can continue to engender peace and love and hope as long as people adopt this worldview, recognizing that we're all God and that we're all one.
Part of cosmic progress is the evolution from religion to religion. New Agers believe that certain religions were beneficial for the evolution of mankind at certain times in history, until mankind outgrew them. The old-time religion, says Joseph Campbell, belongs to another age, another people, another set of human values, another universe. By going back, you throw yourself out of sync with history. Modern man, in order to continue evolving, must abandon Christianity and other traditional religions. In the words of New Age guru Louise Hay, people are interested in the New Age because traditional religion doesn't work. There may have been a time when humans needed such religion, but we have evolved beyond that now. New religion gives much more power to the individual. Instead of looking for universal truth that may exclude some beliefs, cosmic humanists tell us to focus on personal and corporate potential. We need to continue, even hasten the process of evolution toward godhood. All New Agers agree that humans are evolving from a lower to a higher consciousness. This ascent is not merely toward individual consciousness, but collective consciousness. Shakti Gawain writes, every individual's consciousness is connected to and is a part of the mass consciousness. When a small but significant number of individuals have moved to a new level of awareness and significantly changed their behavior, that change is felt in the entire mass consciousness. This is the goal that all cosmic humanists work toward, in an effort to hasten the full-blown evolution of all things. David Spangler describes this as the individual's sense of being a co-creator with history, of being involved in a process of conscious and participatory evolution.
The magnitude of the influence of New Age beliefs in our culture is staggering. Fascination with unbiblical spirituality can be seen in the movies, on popular TV talk shows such as Oprah Winfrey, as well as in the many magazines in the grocery checkout line. An estimated 1/4 of Americans believe in reincarnation. Almost half believe they have had some contact with the spirits of the dead. Forbes magazine estimates that the New Age market makes $3.4 billion per year, with New Age books accounting for approximately $1 billion publishing dollars per year. In the field of education, visualization and meditation techniques are increasingly common. Some curriculum materials surrounding Earth Day teach students that the Earth is alive and should be prayed to.
When a worldview has elements of its belief system being taught throughout our public school curriculum, I think it's safe to say that ideology is no longer on the fringe, as the New Age movement once was thought to be, but rather has now become a widely accepted belief system. The cosmic humanist or New Age movement has indeed become mainstream. It has influenced our whole culture. That's why it's vitally important for us to not only understand this worldview, but to be able to respond to its core beliefs in an intelligent and articulate manner.